Dubro Suspicion Files.
All right, today we are diving deep into one of the most documented, most credible, and frankly, one of the most chilling military encounters with an unidentified object in history. Now, this isn't just another story about some strange lights in the woods. No, this is a forensic breakdown of a major security breach at a nuclear weapons base, and it's all backed by military eyewitnesses, official documents, and actual physical evidence. So, let's take a look.
I mean, really think about that question. It's not a hypothetical. It's the absolute core of the Rendlesham Forest incident. This is exactly what happened over 2 nights back in 1980, and it created a crisis that sent shockwaves from the forest floor all the way up to the Pentagon.
So, let's set the scene. The place? Suffolk, England. The time? Late December 1980. And you have to remember, the world back then was on a total knife's edge, deep in the paranoia and tension of the Cold War. To really get the gravity of what's about to happen, you have to put yourself in that 1980 mindset. The Soviet Union had just invaded Afghanistan. Tensions were absolutely sky high. Any unidentified object penetrating NATO airspace wasn't just a curiosity, it was a potential first strike. That's the world they were living in. And that brings us to our first section. Because this whole thing didn't happen in just any old forest. It happened, literally, in the backyard of a fortress, a critical piece on NATO's nuclear chessboard.
So, the twin bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge were publicly known for their A-10 tank buster jets. But the secret, the real reason they were so important, was something else entirely. They were hosting a massive stockpile of B-61 tactical nuclear bombs. So the security police there, they weren't just guarding a runway. They were guarding the apocalypse.
So, it's the dead of night, 3 in the morning. A patrol sees a light go down in the forest. Immediately, their training kicks in. They're not thinking aliens, they're thinking plane crash. So a 3-man security team, led by a staff sergeant named Jim Peniston, heads out into the woods for what they think is a rescue mission.
And this is where standard emergency call just transforms into something else entirely. As they get deeper and deeper into the forest, the rules of reality just start to bend.
First, the team's radios start failing. Static, dropouts, they can't communicate. Then, the normal sounds of the forest, the insects, the wind, it all just stops. An eerie, unnatural silence falls over them. At the exact same time, animals on a nearby farm are going absolutely bonkers. These are all classic indicators from close encounter cases, real, objective environmental effects telling them they're getting close to something powerful and very strange.
They finally break into a clearing, and there it is. Not a wrecked airplane, but this. Peniston, being the senior NCO on the scene, gets right up to it. He actually touches the object. And his description is so precise. It wasn't like any material he had ever seen. It was like a fusion of metal and glass. So let's break down what he saw, because it's just incredible. The craft was a single, seamless object. No bolts, no rivets, no welds, nothing. It was covered in these strange symbols, kind of like ancient Egyptian pictograms. And then it lifted off. Silently. It just navigated through the dense trees and then shot straight up into the sky. Gone. In the blink of an eye. This wasn't just advanced. By 1980s engineering standards, this was physically impossible.
When the sun came up, the mystery just got deeper. The team went back into the forest, but this time they were there to do a full forensic investigation of the landing site. And what they found was real, tangible proof.
And right here, this is the smoking gun of the incident. Investigators with Geiger counters got a peak radiation reading of 0.1 millirengens per hour in the landing zone. Now, I know what you're thinking. Skeptics will say, that's a really low level. And yeah, it is. But that completely misses the point. The context is everything.
See, the reason this reading is so critical is because of where it was found. The radiation wasn't just spread out everywhere, it was highly localized, right inside the 3 indentations the craft left in the ground. The readings were highest in the very center and then dropped off as they moved away. That proves the source of the radiation was the object itself. This wasn't just background noise, it was a physical trace.
Now, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? A crazy night, some weird evidence, but it wasn't. The whole thing was about to escalate big time and pull in the base's senior leadership.
So, 2 nights later, the call goes out. It's back. And the deputy base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, A no-nonsense, career officer, he's had enough. He thinks his men are panicking over the local lighthouse, so he goes into the forest himself to debunk this whole story once and for all. And, crucially for us, he brought a tape recorder.
Almost as soon as they get out there, Halt's skepticism just evaporates. Near the original landing site, his team's radiation detector starts going off again. It's jumping. That confirms there's still a lingering energy signature there. And then they see it, a red, pulsating light, moving through the trees. You can hear the strain in Halt's professional, military voice on the tape as he describes the object. He says it seems to be behaving with intelligence, like it's watching them.
And then, you get the climax of the tape. The object moves directly over their heads and fires down this narrow, focused beam of light. It lands on the ground right at the commander's feet. Okay, this is no longer a passive sighting. This is a direct, targeted action against a senior NATO officer.
But this wasn't just what they were seeing with their own eyes. It was all being confirmed electronically. Operators over at RAF Neatishead, a primary air defense radar station, were tracking an object over the base doing things that are just impossible. We're talking accelerating to thousands of miles per hour, stopping on a dime, and making sharp right-angled turns. And the ultimate proof? The radar tapes were immediately confiscated by intelligence agents. They've never been seen since. So let's recap. You have multiple high-ranking witnesses, you have physical traces, you have radiation, and you have radar confirmation. The official response should have been a massive, transparent investigation, right? Well, instead, it was the exact opposite. The official conclusion from the British Ministry of Defense was that the incident had, and I quote, no defense significance. Let that sink in. Just consider that claim next to the actual facts. You've got radiation at a nuclear base. You've got an unknown craft penetrating secure airspace. And, as Colonel Halt later testified, you had beams of light being fired down into the nuclear weapons storage area. How is that not of defense significance?
Okay, let's talk about the most common skeptical explanation you always hear, that these elites, trained security guards just got confused by a local lighthouse. I mean, this theory just completely falls apart. These men saw that lighthouse every single night of their lives. They saw it at the same time as the object. A lighthouse beam can't land, it can't leave physical indentations and radiation, and it most certainly cannot be tracked on military radar.
For decades, it was just official denial after official denial. But then, a tangible consequence finally emerged. One of the main witnesses, John Burroughs, started suffering from severe health problems, the kind consistent with radiation exposure. In 2015, after a long, drawn-out legal battle, the U.S. Veterans Affairs granted him full disability for injuries sustained in the line of duty at Rendlesham. This is it. This is a legal de facto admission that something physically real and harmful happened in that forest.
Which brings us right back to that huge, unanswered question. The easy answers, they just don't fit the evidence. So what we're left with is a deeply, deeply unsettling reality. A craft of unknown origin with unbelievable capabilities penetrated one of the West's most sensitive nuclear sites with complete impunity. What was it? And what did it want? That right there is the terrifying legacy of Rendlesham.